On today's episode, we look at that age-old myth, it'll never happen to me. But the truth is, it probably already has.
At M2 Technology, we're on a mission to make IT accessible to everyone. Join us on our journey to demystify the ever-evolving world of business technology. Are you ready to get unplugged?
Welcome back to IT Unplugged. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to look at some IT myths, maybe misconceptions that are out there. So, Mike, what do you think is the biggest misconception or myth that's out there, and where do you think it came from?
You hear all the time, it's not going to happen to me, right? You know, I'm an automotive shop. I have 3 computers. You know, it's what does a hacker want with my information? What do they even have to take? There's nothing here.
Yeah.
You know, we work all online. That's probably the biggest.
Yeah, and I saw a stat the other day that was like mid-70s companies will be hacked in 2024, like 72% or something like that. And you just look at that and you're like, okay, statistically, it's most likely going to be you. So it's weird that is the most common myth that's out there. A lot of times you hear like, oh yeah, everything's in the cloud or whatever else, and it just kind of lowers the defenses of business owners. I mean, do you think like it's happening to more people and they're just not talking about it? Like what is this? Why does it keep on happening?
Possibly. I mean, I think that mindset of it's not going to happen to me because we're so small, or, you know, it's not going to happen to me because I live in Green Bay, right? Mm-hmm. People get hacked in Milwaukee, not Green Bay, or people get hacked on the East Coast. Like that's not a Green Bay thing. Well, don't look at it from your location, right? It's the person, the powers that be in evil land, hacking into you from somewhere. They just see an IP address, right? They don't know where that is. They're just looking, hey, there's a lot of traffic here, or hey, there is traffic here. Sure. Perfect. This probably is it is a business. Okay, great. Mm-hmm. Let's try to penetrate that and lock it down or see what we can take from it. With then hopefully, hey, they don't have a backup. They don't have anything to protect them. It's really easy for us to gain access. Here's a ransom. Yeah. Maybe you pay a ransom. Maybe you don't pay the ransom. Maybe you start over, right? But if you do that, or, a bad person does that enough to a bunch of little guys all over the place, a bunch of little 3 computer shops, and 10% of them pay, or 5% of them pay, or whatever, right? And it's very minimal effort on their part to gain access and to lock down something, and a small portion of them pay out because they have no other option. That's a payday, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Not everybody has the capability to hack an MGM, right? So right. It's one of those things. I mean, there's actually, it's just really interesting. We have service as a software. They have malware as a service now, and ransomware as a service, where legit can attack multiple places, and you pay a subscription and say, hey, we're going to attack these different places. Like it just makes more sense to go after the successful smaller businesses for a lot of these places. From a business standpoint, it's kind of alarming when you walk in and a business owner has that feeling of like, it can't happen to me, because then, especially from a consultative approach, it's like, hey, it can, and then you're almost starting like from like way underground and trying to build this idea up of like, no, you actually do need protection.
Well, and what I think is very scary about it is not the viewpoint of like, I'm bulletproof. I'm Superman. I can't be taken down by hacker man. Okay, yeah, that's kind of its whole own mindset. But what's more destructive is the mindset of like, if it happens, whatever, we'll just start over. No big deal. What's it going to cost to rebuild my 3 computers? We're looking at $10,000. Like, whatever, I'll gladly lose 10 grand every 5 years. I'm fine with that. I'm cool with it. Like, rather than paying for, let's say it's an antivirus and a router and whatever doodads you need that's going to keep you safe. Rather than that, I'd rather just pay for that loss every few years. Like, I'm cool with that. Yeah, that's tough to that's tough to change that mindset.
yeah, and it's almost like it's an education piece, I think, because when it comes to ransomware, the main costs aren't from the ransom. It's actually the reputation and the the trust from customers and the process after even the ransomware of rebuilding everything or starting back from zero. Like there's all those hidden costs. So when you see that, oh yeah, they paid $8,000, it's like, no, they paid way more than that. And I mean, even big companies, you remember when Target got breached or like their information was stolen because I forgot, I think maybe like their card readers were compromised or something like that. And like, I know my Target probably doesn't have a card reader chip in there or whatever, but when I put my card in, I was like, ooh, I feel weird. Like I feel like I'm doing something I'm not supposed to. So
the reputation, and then now with it being the internet age, right? The memes that follow it. When you think like, oh, it's whatever, it's some memes, whatever, but. That's who's creating that is either your shoppers, that's your clientele, or perhaps it's your future shoppers. Hey, that's the college kid that is moving out into an apartment soon, out of the dorm, and are they going to go to Walmart? Are they going to go to Target? Where are they going to go? Well, they just made a whole bunch of memes about how breach-ridden Target is. Maybe they're not going to go there, right? Yeah. So, like you said, the reputation, the ongoing potential loss, or the ongoing loss of sale or missing out on sales. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one of those things that there's ways to kind of combat this attitude. How can IT, let's say IT businesses, but then just businesses in general, kind of break down these walls with these myths and misconceptions?
Well, I like to take a pause for a second, just because we're talking about it. There's definitely trends for different industries. So working with as many industries as we do on the daily or on the monthly, when you see like a large flood of spam emails to automotive customer, more often than not, the other automotive customers you work with are also having, the same push. And that's convenient because then at least hey, if you three all call me today, like reporting this issue, you are in fact having this issue, right? And like these are the things that we're doing to prevent that or assisting in preventing that. It's neat to see, neat to be on the our side of it, but it's also kind of eye-opening that it's almost like there's an agenda for like, okay, this week we're pushing financial, and we're like, oh well, that didn't work, like or oh it did, we got enough out of it that we wanted, now we're pushing automotive. But as far as preventing it, there's definitely things that could be in place to help mitigate the threat or help mitigate the ease of entry. It still comes back down to, like we've talked about in the past, the human interference. So you have all of the checks and balances in place and all of the correct security and cutting edge this and amazing offerings, which is great. But if you have all of that on your house and you have everything locked up in safes and it's extremely safe, but then you walk around with a key and someone's like, hey Brandon, can I have the key to your house? And you're like, yeah, no problem. Here it is. Perfect. And then you get back home and at the end of the day and you're like, my microwave's gone. Like this is, and my TV, like this is strange. I wonder how that happened.
Yeah.
Like, well, you gave me the key, right? So that's absolutely relatable to business with, hey, phishing email comes through. View this OneDrive document, right? And you're like, oh, well, Steve always sends me OneDrive documents. Like, perfect. Jump in there, enter credentials, doesn't work. You're like, well, must be on my internet, or whatever. And you go on, you do something else. Well, you just gave your key away, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, when we kind of look at this, you deal with this all the time. Like, as an IT partner, let's say you work with a lot of dental offices. What happens when you have one or two things, or let's even say one? Like, what do you think is a best practice when you get something that comes through at one dentist office that's potentially dangerous? What are the next steps that you're going to take for your other partners?
Like email based?
I guess just whatever you think you would do, right? Like one of them has something that happens, and I'm sure you don't like blast out like, hey, this happened at this place. But, how do you be proactive then for these other companies when we're trying to essentially like protect other businesses?
So thinking from if it's an actual breach or if it's an attempted breach, whatever it is, if there's a threat associated with it, we like to have like a complete investigation of sorts. If there's no breach, right, the investigation is very short.
Yeah, yeah.
What happened? Okay, someone, tried to send this feeler via email, and they caught onto it, so they sent it to us, and they said, hey, look, is this junk? And we're like, yeah, this is junk. Okay, that's kind of where it ends.
Yep.
Maybe they are aware of training in that situation because they reached out to you, but maybe just reinforce like, hey, thanks for sending it over. Like, we appreciate this. Rather than clicking on it, we have to go play cleanup. Like, this is great. If maybe they're unaware. Yep. Hey, I've been trying to open this email. It's an X-ray from so-and-so. We don't really work with them much, but like, it's not working. That happens frequently. And you're like, did you try to, put in your password? Yeah. It's like, I put it in like 5 times. I don't know which one it is though. Like, do you want to, like, what's my email password?
Sure.
You're like, ooh, okay, well, hey, next time do this or, whatever. If there is an actual breach, right? Like, hey, we're notified so-and-so's computer is trying to reach around the network and like do things. That's not normal, right? It would be isolated, but then we would investigate, where did this come from? How did it enter? How long has it been in the network? Sure. Was it only on this computer? Did it come from Beth's computer, and then Beth's computer still passing this out, and just Jim's computer was flagged, and that's what was isolated, or narrow it down so we know the answers then. Yeah. So then we can propose that to, or present that to the customer that had the issue, but then also we're more aware of that for the next time or going forward. A company down the road has the same issue, or to try to prevent that.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing, like the postmortem, if it happens or not, just how do we, I think that's one of the things that some cybersecurity partners miss out on, is the fact that you have, it's not just about like, hey, we have some software. It's like, we have a partner that's able to see into 50 other businesses and see the things that are going on, and then we get to pass that information along to you from a consultative standpoint, and saying, essentially like, hey, this is what we're seeing here, this is what we're seeing here, this is what we're seeing here. And then you don't always have to be reactive. You can be proactive when it comes to those future businesses. So the
business owner really appreciates that, at least from our experience. And it's not like boasting, hey, this is what we did to clean up your mess, right? Sure. Like, haha, we're not at all. The way that they take that is like, wow, like, these guys did this thing, and, they cleaned this up here, and they did this, and, hey, look at that. Like, they jumped in this in 10 minutes, or whatever, it took them 2 hours. Like, I really appreciate that. They stopped what they were doing during the day. They dropped everything, and they could have been working with somebody else, but they prioritized this issue. It's really important to them, so like it must be a big issue. And hey, that saved me from being offline. Like, that is in fact a big issue. Like, wow, that's they appreciate that. Yeah.
I think another thing that companies can do is like also like talk with other business owners in your specific vertical. If you're a manufacturer, like, make sure you have a network of other manufacturing CEOs or people in the C-suite to just like have conversations with. I feel like maybe it's a little bit
that's specifically beneficial on a lot of aspects, not just cybersecurity. Just
in general. But
talk to other people in your industry.
but like cybersecurity in general, or like what that looks like, it almost seems like it's like a taboo topic sometimes. If something were to happen, it's like you don't want to tell anybody about it because like, oh man, something almost happened. But at the same time, like, a bunch of companies are in that same position where they're like, oh man, we sent out phishing emails to our employees and 50% of them clicked on it. Oh no. Like, it's okay to talk about that with other people in your industry, and then figure out like, oh, you're having that same problem too? Well, this is what was successful here. This is what was successful here, rather than just keeping it kind of quiet. And
not saying pull out a billboard on how you feel.
Oh, yeah.
We were breached. By the way, do you need your oil change? Maybe not so much.
Well, hopefully you're not breached, but
Correct. Yeah. I mean, if more often than not, people in the same industry are aware of each other. Yep. Acquaintances, maybe they're not best friends, but they're aware, right? And hey, you guys are having this issue, like, hey, we recently had this, and it was XYZ. Like maybe that's beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's new rulings out with the SEC where publicly traded companies have to be releasing their breaches or potential breaches. So you're starting to see it in the news even more. And a lot of these companies, if it was not material, which, what does that mean? Oh, it was only a $200,000 breach and we're a $1 billion company. We don't have to release this. Like, now they're having to, so it's going to become a lot more, I don't want to say widespread, but the knowledge of places getting breached is going to be more widespread. Hopefully it's not as much taboo, so we can bring it out into the open to continue to talk about it, because then hopefully you won't get that misconception of it won't happen to me.
Real world example of the publicizing of a issue like that. There was a dental service provider, so like a software provider, that had a breach, and the way it was phrased, I just laughed. Like, it was all solved and everything, so no harm, no foul, whatever. But I laughed at the phrasing of the breach, because it was X amount of whatever the quantity of data that was leaked was not PCI, but it was HIPAA. So we kept your PCI, the payment information, we're good. Your credit card, no big deal. That's all good. Just your HIPAA. Yeah. Like, you're good. So we kept, whatever their total amount of PCI, let's say it's, 1 million users. We kept 1 million users of PCI data safe. Only 750,000 of their HIPAA, that was breached. But hey, your PCI though, like, we've got your back.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
They do the real PR spin behind that one to make it
like, I don't blame them, right?
bad.
But it's kind of funny, like, from the same, right? Like, maybe it's regulated to have, PCI under 1 million, you don't need to report, but then over, you're like, oh,
yeah.
It was just kind of funny.
Yeah. It's an interesting space, but nobody wants to show up in the headlines. Nobody wants to make a PR statement like that. When it comes down to it, it's not going to happen to me. Well, if you have any data that, if somebody was holding on to it and they said, hey, we're not going to give it back to you. If you can't run your business with that data, like, you should be concerned about that data being held ransom from you. It's just as simple as that. I mean, that's the rule that I would follow in the future.
Or the phrasing to touch similarly on that is the phrasing of, how much business you process every day, right? You're a dealership. It's just not picking on dealerships. It's just easy to relate things. How many deals do you have? Oh, we move 25 cars a day. Cool. What do you need for that? Oh, we need access to this software. We need this software. We need, scanning. We scan a document, whatever. Our iPads, you sign on. Okay, do you need internet for all of that too? Yes. Okay. How long could you operate, or how long could you no longer move cars for if you don't have the internet? Sure. There's a fiber line that's cut. Spectrum's going to take 3 weeks to repair it, or you're down, you're breached. Yeah. You don't have your servers, you don't have computers for 3 weeks, a week, a day, whatever it is. What are you okay with missing out on?
Yeah. Yep.
And I think there's probably a line there. Maybe somebody's super comfortable with, hey, things happen. I'm cool with losing out on 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay. I really doubt that someone's going to be like, we don't need this month. Hey, the whole dealership can shut down for a month.
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting once you start doing the math. And the thing is, you can do the math. You just need to be intentional about it. You sit down and take a look at it. So, but thank you guys so much for joining in. This was some misconceptions and some myths about IT and cybersecurity. The big one being, it's not going to happen to me. So, once again, subscribe, like, do all the things. And if you need any help with your IT or cybersecurity, M2 Technology is here for you.